गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुरेव परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। चिन्मयं व्यापि यत्सर्वं त्रैलोक्यं सचराचरं तत्पदं दर्शितं येन तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। वक्रतुण्ड महाकाय सूर्यकोटिः समप्रभा निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्। भवानी शंकरौ वन्दे श्रद्धा विश्वासरूपिणौ याभ्यां विना न पश्यन्ति सिद्धा स्वान्तस्थमीश्वरम्। ओम तत्सद्ब्रह्मम् ओम तत्सद्ब्रह्मम् तत्त्वमसि ब्रह्मम् तत्त्वमसि ब्रह्मम् ओम तत्सद्ब्रह्मम् ओम तत्सद्ब्रह्मम् तत्त्वमसि ब्रह्मम् तत्त्वमसि ब्रह्मम् मार्गरूप ब्रह्मम् मार्गरूप ब्रह्मम् गम्यरूप ब्रह्मम् गम्यरूप ब्रह्मम् लक्ष्यरूप ब्रह्मम् लक्ष्यरूप ब्रह्मम् साधनरूप ब्रह्मम् साधनरूप ब्रह्मम् यात्ररूप ब्रह्मम् यात्ररूप ब्रह्मम् प्रयाणरूप ब्रह्मम् प्रयाणरूप ब्रह्मम् यात्ररूप ब्रह्मम् प्रयाणरूप ब्रह्मम् सच्चिदानन्दरूपाय कृष्णाय क्लिष्टकारिणे नमो वेदान्तवेद्याय गुरवे बुद्धिसाक्षिणे गुरवे बुद्धिसाक्षिणे कृष्णद्वैपायनं व्यासं सर्वलोकहितैषिणम् वेदाब्जभास्करं वन्दे समाधिनिलयं मुनिम् समाधिनिलयं मुनिम् The happiness that we experience in this world is actually a conditioned happiness. Is connected with the sheath of happiness. In other words, in the Vedantic terminology, it is Anandamaya Kosha based happiness. And the happiness that we experience is possible because of our Shubha karmas, meaning good actions, good deeds, and upasana, and the tapasya that we have done is responsible for providing to us the situations where we come to experience happiness. Without the previous good deeds and the upasana that we have performed, we would not be in a position to experience happiness through our association with various things. We experience happiness when we have conducive situations, like we are with the objects of our happiness and we are able to involve in interactive experience with that objects of our happiness, like the presence of sense objects, the people whom we love, probably our children, partners, friends, and attainment of goals, acquiring a job, gaining some wealth, getting a good name. All these things we experience in our life. These are all there not only because of the present action, but basically because of our previous actions which we have already performed, which are Shubha karmas and upasanas. And the happiness that we experience because of the Shubha karmas and upasana and in the format which we have just now understood is called as surpassable happiness. Sa Atishaya Ananda. Meaning, it is not highest happiness, it is not greatest happiness, it is not ultimate happiness. There is happiness beyond it, which is much intensely deeper and greater, and in which there are no distinctions, there are no divisions, and there are no limitations. And that happiness in which there are no divisions, there are no connected with our true nature. And that happiness which is connected with our true nature, which is our own self, which is also called as inward self, which of course is not different from the Supreme Self, in which there are no differences of any kind. Like earlier we have seen in few of these names, there are differences like Swagata Veda, Sajatiya Veda, Vijatiya Veda. All these kinds of Vedas are not there. That happiness, which is not at all bound by any one of these limitations, is the Niradishaya Ananda, unsurpassable happiness. It cannot be surpassed. There is nothing greater than that, higher than that. There are all various kinds of joys, enjoyments, pleasures, which we come to experience. They are all surpassable happiness. There are higher happinesses, or higher happiness is there. But this happiness, which is Niradishaya, is actually not different from Sa-Adishaya. The Niradishaya happiness only appears in our lives as Sa-Adishaya happiness. Like whenever we meet our children, we are happy. Our beloved, we are happy. Positive things, when we gain name and fame, we are happy. Money, we are happy. Jewelry, we are happy. Like that. All this is actually Niradishaya Ananda, but in this format. It is coming to us in a small format, very minute format, very light format. This is coming to us. This happiness or Ananda is coming to us in this small format. But if we have to experience the Niradishaya Ananda in its pristine highest level, then we need to look into ourselves and understand our oneness with the inward self, and the inward self as not different from the Supreme Self. Right now what is happening is that the inward self is veiled by ignorance. We have that supreme source of happiness inside us. Not that we don't have. We have Brahman as our inner self inside us. It is there. Ever since we began our journey, it is there. But it is veiled by avidya, ignorance. Because it is veiled by avidya, we are not able to understand it, know it. Because we don't know that we have it, then we try to go into outside world and pursue various things and try to become happy. Even in the outside world, when we try to pursue to become happy, just like that we cannot become happy. Unless and until we are very diligent, efficient, proficient in performing activities in the present period of time, and we are also supported by, assisted by our previous deeds that we have done in the past in the form of Suvakarmas and Upasanas. So whatever Upasana we do, it doesn't go waste. Even this Vishnu Sahasranama, chanting or listening or Homa, Yajna, contemplation is all Upasana. Plus a very good divine deed. The result is definitely happiness. There is no doubt about it. It will never go waste or in vain. It will come. In various formats it will come. But if it can come in a more diviner format, it will bring us closer to God. It will make us gain more knowledge of God, more devotion to God, more meditative temperament towards God. That is a higher benefit of these Shubhakarmas and Upasanas. So, happiness is possible in this manner. And Brahman himself is there in our intellect in the form of a semblance, a resemblance. Like the space in a pot, same space, like the same Brahman is in a semblance form in our intellect. So whatever we experience in our mind, intellect, memory, ego, equipment is actually not its own happiness, but the happiness of the semblance of Brahman. in a much more lesser version, reflection of the joy of Brahman. So by itself, neither mind and intellect, ego and memory can give us joy or they have joy. They can give us joy only when they get the reflection or semblance of Brahman. In a small way, minutest levels. That is what is the joy that we have. And for the sake of this experience of the happiness, we try to chase the worldly objects, always have the worldly objects, whole time we spend in the worldly objects. In addition to the experience which we may certainly get in the form of happiness, but we have bondage, we have suffering, we have misery, we have tension, we have stress, we have so many other kinds of experiences which come to our Lord in the pursuit of the happiness in the world outside. But when we pursue this happiness in the inward self, all these things, initially they may appear as obstacles, but slowly by His grace, we overcome all of them and transcend all of them. That is why that happiness actually is bliss. That bliss is actually Brahman. In that state, there is no difference between the one who has bliss and the one who is bliss. In our state, that which is happiness and the one who has happiness are different. In our level. That is why we have happiness when that which is happiness is there in us. But in that state, there is no difference. Brahman is bliss, that is the nature. Here, our mind, intellect, memory, ego, which we think as ourselves, as individual ego, it is not the nature. Happiness is not the nature of ego, mind, intellect, memory, ego, equipment. So, still here, the one who has happiness, that which is happiness is different. That is why, how much ever happiness we gain, we are not totally satisfied here in this world because we are not happiness. We are not actually becoming one in ourselves as happiness. That is still different. The difference is there. How much of a higher happiness we gain, till we gain the happiness of inward self, as inward self, this difference will be there. Still there is a possibility of dissatisfaction. Still there is a possibility of me getting distanced from the happiness, losing that happiness, forgetting that happiness, not knowing that happiness is there. All these things are possible. So the only way where we ever live in happiness is knowing that our inward self is that bliss of Brahman and that is bliss. There is no difference at all. That is what it means when happiness in which there are no differences, no distinctions. That is the highest happiness. So the next name that we are going to look into is actually connected with that one. Name number 7 to 8. Kaha. Kaha actually means happiness. Kashabdaha sukhavachakaha. It is sukhavachakaha. It is an indication of happiness. So Kaha means God Vishnu. That happiness. Happiness of the Vishnu, Vishnu's happiness, Vishnu himself has happiness. So happiness. And in the Chandogya Upanishad also it is said, Kam Brahma. Kam means Brahma. Brahma means Brahman. Brahman means pure consciousness. Pure consciousness here with reference to Vishnu Sahasranama means Mahavishnu. So happiness is Brahman. That's what we have seen in the introduction for the talk today. Happiness is Brahman. That is highest happiness. And that is Niratishaya Ananda, unsurpassing happiness. Beyond that there is nothing else. There are no limitations, never goes less. It never leaves us once we gain this Niratishaya Ananda. We are that. So there is no separation at all. It is ever with us. So that is Bhagavan. So if we keep Bhagavan in whatever form which is possible to us, in the form of a nama, mantra, japa, vrata, puja, homa, whatever it is, Bhagavan when He is there, because He is Kaha, happiness, He will give us only happiness. Even in the form of a name, if we keep Bhagavan inside, He has to give happiness, because He is happiness. Nothing else. When we keep happiness inside, happiness alone will come. When we keep sources of misery inside, misery will come to our experience. Like that, whatever we are experiencing, because we are keeping those things inside us. So, happiness is Brahman. So, name is Bhagavan. Bhagavan is bliss. So, when we keep name here inside and contemplate and meditate and devotedly express our feelings of reverence towards it, definitely happiness will be the result. It cannot be anything else. And it is certainly higher happiness than all other happinesses that we experience in this world. There is nothing greater than that. And once we start tasting it, then rest all happinesses in the world look pale and stale. Till then, they will look very colorful, very bright, very brilliant. Kaha also means brightness. Bhagavan is ever shining, full of radiance, full of brightness, full of light and splendor. So Kaha, that splendor which is happiness. That is why it is said here, Bhagavan is a question. Kaha also means a question. So he who is ever a question without an answer. He is a question without an answer. Answer means our intellectual mental level. How can he fall into our intellectual mental level? So, human intellect, for the human intellect, he is a question. What is this God? Who is this God? What is this happiness? How this happiness we can gain? What is this lesser happiness, greater happiness? Always is a question. Why this happiness is eluding me? Why I am not always happy? The question. So, this happiness, which is Kaha, is experienced only by transcending our intellectual level, meaning going beyond our Antahakarana. Then becoming one with the inward self, remaining as inward self, without the mediacy or intermediary instrumentation of Antahakarana or internal organ. That is real happiness. So that is what is Kaha, happiness. Next, Kim. Next name of Bhagavan in Vishnu Sahasranama. Kim. Kim means what? What means Brahman? That's what it is. As Brahman is the supreme God among all aims of life. Aims of life, Purusharthas, Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. The righteousness, the pleasure and desire, seeking or fulfillment, or wealth, or the final liberation, whatever it is. They are all the Purusharthas. And in all these Purusharthas, he alone is the supreme goal finally, which is to be inquired through all of them. And he is to be diligently sought through constant questioning. What is his nature? Don't we question what is his nature, how is he, and all that. So we keep on questioning, that is what. What inquiring the Lord is termed here as Kim. So in Bhagavad Gita also, this reflects in this form, Kim Tat Brahma Kim Adhyatmam. So that way, what is Brahman? What is the self? This is the way in which it has to be inquired. What? So that also is Brahman. Next, Yat. Yat means which. Which also here is Brahman. The pronoun Yat, which pronoun Yat, which meaning is which, the pronoun Yat denotes an already existing object. Which means what? Already existing object is denoting. That is why in Taittiriya Upanishad, Yato Ayimani Bhutani Jayante. That is the mantra. So, from which all these beings come out. That is the Upanishad says. From which all these beings come out. That is Brahman. So, which is Brahman? So, that way. And Yat also means that which is self-existent. It is existent by itself. Rest all things in this universe are existent because of existence. It is self-existent, independent of anything. It is independent of existence of things and non-existence of things. It is independent of them. It is self-existent. We are dependent upon existence of things and non-existence of things. Favorable things, we want them to exist. Unfavorable things, we do not want them to exist. Things that we dislike, if they exist, we are unhappy. Things, if we like, they don't exist, we are unhappy. So, we are dependent upon existence or non-existence of things. Our existence is a dependent existence. Always. That is why always we complain that why I am not happy because of something else which is either existing or not existing. This is the basic bottom line. Why I am disturbed? Either existing or non-existing thing disturbs me. By its existence or non-existence. He did not fulfill the promise. So that promise is not existing. But they want to exist. He is troubling me. The trouble is existing now, which I don't want it to exist. So always we are experiencing experiences either because of existence of things or non-existence of things. And things can be either existent or non-existent, that's all. That is the truth. There is only one thing which is beyond existent and non-existent, which doesn't come in this level of definition. That is Brahman. That is where that Brahman is inquired in this format. Yata, Yatova, Imana, which is Brahman. Next, Tata. Tata means Tata. That also is Brahman. Tata means that. That is Brahman. Tanoti Brahma, Tanoti iti Brahma Tata. Tanoti iti Brahma Tata means that which pervades everywhere is Brahman. And our famous Mahavakya, Tat Tvam Asi. So for Brahman, they didn't use any other name. Tata Tvam Asi, that thou art. And even in our Bhagavad Gita it is said, Om Tat Saditi Nirdesho Brahmana Trividha Shrutaha. 23rd sloka of the 17th chapter, this is clearly said. Om Tat Sat, this has been taught to be a triple designation of Brahman. So Brahman has a designation now, according to Smriti Gita. Om Tat Sat. That is the triple designation of Brahman. Everything of Brahman is understood. And Tattvamasi also means that thou art. The meaning in a different way here is that means the truth is not comprehended now, but it is to be apprehended through listening to the teacher, reflecting upon what we have heard, and contemplating upon what we have reflected. Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasana. So Tattvamasi statement itself says that we need Shravanam, we need Mananam, we need Nididhyasana. Which we are doing here every day. That is what is happening. We are listening, we are reflecting because certain times either we think about things what we have heard or sometimes here Bhishmacharya himself make us think again of two things. So reflection is already there. Some meanings are similar, so already reflection is there. And all that we need is to sit down for a while and constantly contemplate upon it for a certain period of time. A continuous contemplation upon the oneness of the name with the named is Nididhyasana. In the Vedanta terminology, continuous contemplation of the oneness of individual self with Supreme Self is Nididhyasana. Here continuous contemplation of the name with the named, of oneness of the name with the named is contemplation. So for a certain time we continuously do, that is what Nididhyasana. And slowly by His grace it alone becomes dhyana, meditation by His grace. And then the dhyana leads into realization. That is all. It is all His grace afterwards. We have to do only Shravanam, Mananam and sincerely, dedicatedly put sincere efforts to continue Nididhyasana. That is all that we are doing here. So that is what it is. Next name, Padam Anuttamam, Padam Anuttamam. The unequaled status. Padyate, Gamyate, Mumukshu Viriti Padam. There is a very nice meaning here? He is sought after by those desiring, yearning after liberation or emancipation. That emancipation is Padam. That liberation is Padam. He is sought after by whom? Those people are sincerely desiring for liberation. So, he is sought after by such people. And next, Anuttamam means, Padam, Anuttamam both are combined. Anuttamam means unequaled. So, Yasmad Utkrishtam Nasti Tad Anuttamam. Yasmad Utkrishtam Nasti Tad Anuttamam. Meaning, he than whom there is no higher. There is nothing higher than him. That is Anuttamam. He is the highest. Above him there is nothing. And he is sought after by those people who desire liberation. So, he is the highest status, highest thing. Above him there is nothing. That is Anuttamam. And Padam, he is the one who is sought after by those people who seek liberation. Now, the beauty of Adi Shankara here is, he says, Padam he interprets as, Padam means the way. Padam means the goal. Padam means the journey. The way, the goal, the journey. How beautiful it is. Brahman is the way. Brahman is the goal. Brahman is the journey. And how to reach there? Hold on to Vishnu. Vishnu will become the way. Vishnu will become the goal. He will inspire us by becoming the goal. He will lead us by showing the way. And he will be with us in the entire journey, because he is journey. Padam means journey. Padam means pilgrimage. When people go for pilgrimages to great sanctified places also, it is not only the place where they are going is Vishnu or God, the pilgrimage itself is God. That is the beauty. That is why in olden days when people have gone to Chardham or Kailash and all, after they come back, others used to go and then do namaskar to them. And sometimes there are elders who prostrate to them because their aura will be charged with the divinity. So if we go and prostrate, we will also get some blessings and glimpses and some share of that. But nowadays people have taken it lighter. So that is a different. Earlier that sincerity, which because the pilgrimage itself is God. Don't think the destination is God. Pilgrimage also. So here, once we set out on our journey to attain the feet of God or realize God, where is God? God is God. Journey is God. All along our journey, God will be there. How will I have to go? What will happen to me in my journey? Who will come with me? There are many people, they can't go alone, so they feel bored. So they want the presence of somebody. And then they always feel insecure if nobody is there. So that is how it is. So Bhagavan is there. Who will be there with us in journey, Bhagavan? And who will show us the way? Why are you worried? What is there? Where is Bhagavan? I don't know when I reach the end destination. It is also Bhagavan. Bhagavan alone is the end. Bhagavan alone is the way. Bhagavan alone is the journey. He will make us. He will hold us. He will take us. That is the beauty of Padam. The highest Padam, how can we go? Only because of it we can go. Who will reveal it? He will reveal it. Who will take us around? He will take us around. Where do we walk? In Him. How do we walk? With Him. That is the beauty of Padam Anuttamam. What a beautiful thing. What more we want? If we hold on to this one word, we will definitely reach. Because who is taking us? He is taking us. Where? In Him. That is the beauty. And what is He? He is happiness. So that is all it is. Trust Him. That is the beauty here. Trust Him. He will protect all of us. All through the journey by showing us the way and making us reach the destination. The trust has to be there. Anything that we encounter in between, we should know only one thing. We are with Him. He is with us. When He is with us, when we are with Him, whatever we face, it has to make way for us. It has to move out. It cannot stay because He is with us. That is the ultimate. He is with us. That feeling is the most important thing. He is with us. If Pandavas have won the war and Kauravas are defeated, the only actual cause according to Mahabharata is the Dharma Swarupa Sri Krishna himself. In every single victory, his intelligence, his maneuvering, his involvement, his presence, his guidance, his protection were clearly there, without which nothing could have happened. In spite of their divine levels and divine amshas, Pandavas being divine amshas and all whatever it is. So, but basically he has done his dharma. That is why he is very close to all his devotees or people who are dharmic. That is why next name, Lokabandhu. Lokabandhu, the support of the universe. How can we call him support of the universe? Number one, because all worlds are bound up with him. He is the support of all the worlds, and when we are living in the world, he automatically supports us. Second reason, how do we say that he is the support of the world? Because he is the father of all the worlds. And when father is very friendly, is there anything that we need, any more guidance? Is there anything that equally friendly guidance of a father who is all in love and who has all the courage to lead and then who has all the love, compassion? That is the beauty. So God himself will be like our father and he will lead us. That is the best guidance that we can expect here. Meaning there is no friend equal to a fatherly figure or a father-like person or a father himself. So, because he is like that, he is Lokabandhu. And because he is instructing all the worldly people what is right, what is wrong through Shruti and Smruti. That is why he is Lokabandhu. Who is a Bandhu? Who tells us what is good, what is bad, what is going to give good to us, what is going to give bad to us, and only compassionately tells us, and that is Lokabandhu. Next name, Lokanadaha, the Lord of the universe. As he is sought after by the world, so he is called as Nakaha. The whole world, Lokaha, seeks him. He is sought after by the whole world, so he is Nakaha, Lokanadaha. Or Lokanadaha has other meanings according to Sri Adi Shankara. Because he shines, he is Lokanadaha. And because he blesses, he is Lokanadaha. Or because he rules, he is Lokanadaha. Either because he shines, or because he blesses, or because he rules, he is Lokanadaha. Nagaha means shines, or praised by, or loved by also is a meaning. Loved by. Lokanadaha, who adds, another meaning is who adds glory to the world. Because his presence is the glory of the world. He adds glory to the world. One who is always solicited by the world of beings for the fulfillment of their desires and needs. That is why everyone seeks God. Various things human beings need, for all those things they seek only God. Next name number 735. Madhava, Madhu's offspring. As Krishna was born in the family of Madhu, a Yadava. So he was born in that family, so he is Madhava. And when we try to know a little bit about Madhava, he is the son born to Yadu of his Naga wife Dhumravarna, and then the Yadava dynasty was established by this Yadu and his son Madhava. So that is why he is also called as Madhava. He is born in that clan. Next, Bhakta Vatsalaha. Bhakta Vatsalaha, affectionate to his devotees. Or in other words, his love for his devotees knows no bounds. He alone can love like that. No limitation to his love. Bhaktanam Snehiti Bhakta Vatsalaha, who is very friendly and affectionate to his devotees. Very friendly and affectionate. So that we can share anything, ask anything, be as we want to be with God. And he destroys the sins of his devotees. That is also his Bhakta Vatsala. or he keeps them under protection. That is why also he is Bhakta Vatsala. Next sloka. Suvarna varno hemango varangas chandanangadi viraha visamasunyo tasira chalaschalaha. Suvarna varnaha, the golden hued. Yada pashyate rukma varnam, from the Mundaka Upanishad. Yada pashyate rukma varnam. When the beholder sees the golden color, he is the very all-illumining pure awareness. Meaning, when the seeker goes on meditating, then in the higher levels of meditation, he sees the golden color. And there he comes to experience that the golden colored one is nothing but pure awareness, which is all illuminating. Upon seeing the golden effulgent being, the seer's realization is completely transformed. Swami Chidananda said, upon seeing that golden illumining awareness or that principle of golden light, then there will be a transforming experience happening inside us. And that shakes off all the papa and it takes us even beyond the very soft and comfortable binding of punya. It takes away all papa, initially it gives a lot of punya, then makes us go beyond that punya also. Taking off all papa and punya, when they are gone, there is no more bondage even of punya, because we go beyond it and pure stainless state we reach, and in that pure stainless state we will attain supreme equipoise. That state of supreme equipoise is Bhagavan himself, and that is Suvarna Varna. Next, Hemanga, with the limbs like gold. Bhagavan has limbs like gold. Yet Esho Antar Aditye Hiranmaya Purusha, Chandogya Upanishad. Yet Esho Antar Aditye Hiranmaya Purusha Drishyate. That this golden person seen in the disk of the sun, Surya Mandala, is the Lord who is functioning through the orbit of the sun, known as Hiranmaya, of pure golden form. He is of the pure golden form. From his golden form only, sun also veils all the golden light. Varangaha, with beautiful limbs. He is having very beautiful limbs. Vara also means lovable. One whose form is lovable, one whose limbs are lovable. Or they are supremely lovable to the yogis because they are in total love with him. All others, little love with him. Like in our relationships also, we have maximum love for somebody and average love for someone, less love for someone, faint love for someone, no love for someone. You have like that. But here, yogis are in total love with him. So he is always in that love. He is lovable. He is lovable for everyone. Chandanangadi. Chandanangadi. One meaning is with attractive armlets. Armlets are the ornaments which are worn by various warriors or fighters in order to protect their upper arms and shoulders from the enemy's swords. Armlets. But another meaning of Chandanangadi is he is besmeared with pleasing sandal. That is why in many of the rituals we see the real chandan paste being applied to God, Archavataras, God's Archavatar, or the God's idols. And he also is happy with that. But here, the Chandana, another deeper meaning of Chandana is joy giving. Angada armlets, Chandana joy giving. Meaning our shoulders, arms, fingers, these hands, all these represent doing some action. Meaning if our actions are connected or oriented towards joy giving, we also are living like God. So God is actions, hands are always joy giving to everybody. And Chandana means joy giving. The inner meaning of Chandana means joy giving. So this also is one of the meanings why people apply Chandana on their forehead. Of course, it is the most conscious center. And that is why their conscious center becomes more awakened, and then we become awakened to that, and that is it. But Chandana, another meaning is joy giving. So we are reminding ourselves this center, when we get rooted in it, when we go deep into it, when we become one with the awareness inside, so it will give us joy. So this Chandana outside is joy giving. That way also. Chandana, joy giving. And his beauty is such that it gives joy to all. Next name, Viraha. Viraha, the slayer of the valiant enemies or foes. As he slays the Asura chiefs to protect the righteousness. Dharma Tranaya, Viran, Asura Mukhyan, Hanti iti Viraha. Asura Mukhyas, all great chiefs, Asura chiefs, all of them were killed by him to protect the righteous people and righteousness itself. And it also means, Viraha also means, he who destroys the very powerful likes and dislikes that are ruling our mind or internal organ. He will only destroy. Next, Vishamaha, unequaled as he transcends everything. Na dvata samo asti abhyadigaha utonyaha. In Bhagavad Gita, there is none equal to or superior to you. Arjuna says this, there is none equal to you or superior to you. Na vidyate samo yasya saha vishamaha. There is nobody equal or superior to him. So he is vishamaha. Next, shunyaha. Many of the meditators, in view of the philosophical systems of meditation, they have a great misunderstanding here. That shunyaha means non-existence of everything. Emptiness. There is nothing. So when we become nothing, that is what is divinity. That is a stop to divinity. That is not divinity. That is a stop in the journey to divinity. But people who think it is a divinity, they stop there. No doubt it is higher. No doubt it is far, far beyond the lower levels of experiences. But still, it is not ultimate destination. It is only in the path towards that ultimate, in the higher levels. Shunya also is an experience where nothing is there. Even I am becoming nothing. Nothing. That's why people say, there is no God, there is no self, there is no Atma, there is nothing. Everything is nothingness. In nothingness, we come to exist. And then in nothingness, we get into nothingness and nothing remains. Even we don't remain. Of course, that is a great level. But that is not ultimate. That's what the correction happens here from Adi Shankaracharya himself. So he says, Sarva Vishesha Rahitatvad Shunyavad Shunya. That is the beauty of it. Sarva Vishesha Rahitatvad Shunyavad Shunya. As he is without attributes, he is like void. He is free from faults. He is like void, not void. He is like void. That has to be understood. So void means, according to Swami Chinmayanandaji, the total absence of equipments of our experiences. What are the equipments of our experiences? Body, mind, intellect. And fields of experiences, objects, emotions and thoughts. And experience and attitudes, perceiver, feeler and thinker personality. So BMI, OET, PFT. Where these things are absent, BMI, body, mind, intellect are absent, which are our equipment. Through these equipments only we experience things. What are the equipment? Body, mind, intellect are equipment. And fields of experiences are objects, emotions and thoughts. And experience and attitudes, perceiver, feeler, thinker, personality. The BMI, PFT, OET are not there in Brahman. All these are totally absent. So, the non-existence of these things, that is what is Shunya. But what exists there is He Himself. The pure existence existence. That is why Adi Shankaracharya makes it very clear. The pure existence is without all these objects of existence. The pure existence is without all these things. So there also, in that nothingness also, existence is there. He exists. God exists. So that is the beauty of it. So object, emotion and thought, they are not there. But he is there. Who is the main source of illumination of all these things? Because for him to know himself, he does not need mind. For us to know ourselves, we need mind. If there is no mind, oh, you are like that. Don't we see some people like that? They don't know who they are, they don't know what they are, they don't know others. Not that there is no God there, God is there. But the veiling of ignorance is there, and that jiva is undergoing that karma, some prarabdha, purva. And he will also be like that. With the mind only he knows, but he doesn't mind whether the mind is there or not, because he doesn't need mind. He is beyond. He doesn't need. That's all. He only brought mind into existence with this power of India, Maya. So he doesn't need that. That is why he is existing without all these things. That is Shunyavata Shunya. That statement, Shunyavata, like void, it is not void. He is there. Void means also is not there. That is why people mistake. Big philosophers mistake. Here, that's why Adi Shankara clearly guides it. Never come to a conclusion in your journey towards higher spirituality that nothing is there. So your nothingness is there. There are people who settle down in nothingness. They preach only nothingness. But that is not. There is that existence which is conscious of this nothingness, which is enabling the person to experience nothingness. So that existence, that pure consciousness is without niyama, niyati, without anything, and that existence is there. So that is what is real understanding of Shunya, void without attributes. He is without attributes as Shunya. Next, Dhritasi, he who makes no request. He will never make any request. He will do whatever he wanted. And that is why he went into the houses of Gopas and Gopis and then took away the butter. He took it away. And so people call him butter thief. But actually it is not butter thief. The truth behind it is, those fellows are so dull that they are not doing any punya by doing any dana, by sharing anything what they have. So how to give them punya? For the sake of giving them punya, of giving things to Bhagavan, he went and stole them forcibly and made them pay punya. Do you think he is falling short of butter? Do you have created a whole world? Do you think he can't create butter? Huh? He forcibly made them pay punya. How Bhagavan does that? What punya they did? Nothing else. Being born at the same time and being in the near vicinity of Bhagavan and looking at Bhagavan. That is the only thing. So he decided, I want to give them punya. How? They are not doing it. I will take it. So anyway, I am eaten it. So once I am eaten it, they will think, what? He took it, I will took it. So that statement that he took it away, that itself is punya karma. I am taking them. So in return they are getting punya only. So it is not stealing anything, it is giving. Suppose somebody comes to our house and takes away 10 rupee thing and leaves 1 lakh rupees. Do you call it stealing? Huh? Do you call it stealing? No, not at all. It is gift. That is all. As a token of his action, he might have taken something. That is how it is. So, he is like that. That is why he is Dhritasi. He makes no request anywhere. He is just, he does whatever he likes. Because whatever he does is only for the benefit of people. Always he is wishing good for all his beings. Achala, the immutable. Na Swarupat, na Samadhyat, na cha Jnanadhikari, Gunad, Chalanam, Vidyate, Asyete, Achalaha. Very nice definition by Sri Shankaracharya. As he undergoes no change in his nature. nature. We undergo a lot of change in our nature. What was there before will not be there afterwards. He never undergoes a change in his nature. Next, he never undergoes any change in his power. His power always powerful. All other powerful people in the world, one time powerful, another time more powerful. Next time powerful, because powerless fool. Only those people who are beside them only they don't bother about it. That is not power and like that. But his power is always powerful. Wisdom is always wise. Never undergoes any change. But our wisdom undergoes a lot of change because of age, because of capacity of mind, because of so many new things coming to us, more confusion or more clarity, whatever it goes on change. Whatever attributes that he has, they never undergo change. Whatever attributes we have, always they undergo change. Nityam sarvagatasthanu achaloyam sanatana. 24th sloka of 2nd chapter of Bhagavad Gita. He is eternal, all-pervading, stable, immovable, and ancient. He is eternal, eternal and all-pervading, eternal, all-pervading and stable, eternal, all-pervading, stable, and immovable, and ancient. So he is Achalaha. That is why he is Achalaha. There is no need to move. There is no change in him. In any one of his qualities which he has, also attributes no change. Everything remains the same. Next, Chalaha. Immediately next name is Chalaha. The mutable, the changeable, mutable, full of change. Vayu Rupena Chalati iti Chalaha. In his aspect as air, he is full of movement. Is it not? Air also is he only. From him only air also has come. That also. Vayu has come from him only. So, he in the form of Vayu, in his aspect as Vayu, is full of movement. Vayu will stay full of movement. If Vayu doesn't move, he will start moving. Is it not? There are 2-3 ways to understand this. One is no air, so we will start moving our hand or fanning, or we will start doing something, no current, or we will move around. Or if there is no oxygen, we will be moved around afterwards. That is how it is. So, all movement of Vayu, because of it, full of movement. And one more thing is that is, Bhagavan, whenever he sees his devotees in difficulty, he rushes from his place to protect the devotee. And the example Adi Shankara cites very aptly is Bhagavan Vishnu, in order to protect the Gajendra, he rushed to protect it without minding anything, whatever is carried or not. So that way, Bhagavan always rushes from his place to the place of the devotees to protect them. And one more thing is, the realm of change, Swami Chinmayananda says, the realm of change is also nothing other than immovable Atma. Actually, that also is Atma. It only has manifested as that which is changing. And whenever we look at Bhagavan through conditionings, because conditionings move, we think he is moving. When the moon falls into the lake, the reflection, because the waters move, we think the moon is also moving. That is what it is. So, conditionings move, we attribute the movement to him. That way also he is mutable. The other way to protect devotees, that is very nice. Or in the aspect of prayer, that also is very nice. It was pitch black dark in the night. And the captain was heading in his ship. Captain was heading in his ship. It was pitch dark. And suddenly, this captain was heading in his ship, sees a light dead ahead, a light dead ahead, just ahead. Suddenly, he sees a light dead ahead, and which is on the collision course. In few moments, there will be a collision. When the ship collides with another ship, finished. No ship. So another light is this. So he sends a message. He sends a message. Move 10 degrees towards your east. Move 10 degrees towards your east. And within no time he gets the message immediately. Move 10 degrees towards your west. He gets the message back. Move 10 degrees towards the west. Then he says, I am the captain of the ship. You move, sir. That is the message. Then he gets back the message, I am the seaman. You move, sir. Then he sends the message, this is a battleship. Meaning full of arms, weapons, everything. It will tow. Battleship. It is a battleship. This is a battleship. You move at once. And then comes the reply, which flashes on the screens. I am a lighthouse. Choice is yours. Lighthouse is that which guides the ships to the shore, to the port. It is a lighthouse. Now choice is the ship, battleship or a captain or whatever it is. He has to move. That is all it is. He only has to move. The moving things are like the ship and the captain and the mind. Immovable, achala, is like the lighthouse, which is always guided. The movable and the immovable. That is very important in life. We move on to the next story. Amani manalo manyo. Amani manalo manyo. Lokaswami trilokadhrita. Lokaswami trilokadhrita. Sumedha medhajo dhanyah. Sumedha medhajo dhanyah. Satyamedha dharadhara. Satyamedha he who has no egoism. We are the ones who have egoism. We are mani, he is amani. Anatma vastushu atma abhimano nasti asya swachha samvedana kuterti amani. Being the unegoistic intelligence, it is unegoistic intelligence. It has no mistaken notions of Atman in things that are not Atman. What we have is egoistic intelligence, which has all mistaken notions of Atman in the things that are not Atman. We believe Anatma to be Atman. We take body as permanent, mind as eternal, and whatever things that are there in our ignorance. Anatma Vastu, we think it as Atma Vastu. He is divine intelligence. There are no mistaken notions of Anatma Vastus as Atma. He doesn't see Atma in Anatma Vastus only. He will see Atma in Atma only. That is all it is. He will not see or he will not identify. We see these things are real. We consider these things. That is why our thought is so real to us. Our emotion is so real to us. Our thought is a fake thing. Our claim to think is a fake thing. Actually, this ego is only claiming that it is the author of the thought which appears in our mind. So we are thinking so real, thought is so real. Thought is a thought, it is an appearance. How many of us can consider like that? But it is anatma vastu. There is no self in it. But we think it is so real. Thought is so real, but for the sake of the thought, in order to fulfill our thought, we will make other fellow thoughtless or lifeless. Or faceless. Baseless. Whatever it is. Don't we think thought is so real to us? Thought is not real. Thought, we can leave it like that. Whatever thought it is there, even the thought of hurt, even the thought of misery, even the thought of insult, even the thought of a loss, again, Name, fame, pride, whatever is a thought inside our mind and emotion that is associated with it, and the emotion is real, our God is real, our body is real, our brain is real. All these unreal things we are given reality today. There is something. That fellow said like this. What is that? This is thought inside the mind. Drop it. We are out of it. But can we drop it? We will drop that fellow, take him up to the top of a mountain. We can drop that fellow from there, but we will not drop the thought. We cannot drop the thought. Or some people, if they can't drop others, they drop themselves. They will plunge from that peak and commit whatever they commit. Harm to themselves. Either they end themselves or put an end to others, but they don't leave the thought. How much of reality they are giving to thought, which is unreal? Thought itself belongs to mind. Mind belongs to avidya. Avidya itself is not a reality. Byproduct of avidya. See? So mind's thought is given so much of reality. Emotion is given so much of reality. Body is given so much of reality. Because we see Atman in them indirectly. That's what we are seeing. But he is the one who never sees it. He knows his real divine nature. On the 9th day in the Kurukshetra war, when Bhishmacharya ji, last day of fighting was 10th day. 9th day, they have seen the ferocious form of Bhishmacharya and Dharmaraja. That night, Dharmaraja feels now it is impossible for us to win war if Bhishmacharya is continuing to fight. Impossible. And he will not stop fighting. That is of course. No doubt, Bhishmacharya has taken a clear vow and condition that he will not kill Pandava. That is very clear. He will not kill Pandava. Duryodhana asked him now. That I will not. All others I will kill, but not Pandavas. So, they may be there, but everybody else will be gone. That's what Dharmaraja thinks, how minds think. And Dharmaraja tells his brothers and Sri Krishna is there. I think my choice was better earlier only. That I don't want to fight anymore. I will go. So these people get such thoughts once in a while. And I will go now. And then the Arjuna also on 9th day, his fighting is all not a very dynamic fighting, a very light fighting. And he was not able to really resist the Bhishma. And Krishna heard all of them, their talk and their things. And he says one thing. Krishna says to Pandavas on the 9th night. And he says, indeed, all of you are too kind and too good to be killers. You are all too kind and too good to be killers. Even in the Dharma Yuddha, you are so kind. You are very kind people. It is like a taunt only, actually. But it's saying naturally you are very kind. You are very cold enough to cut down your enemy Senapati. You think he is grandfather, of course. So you are unable to do that. But Sri Krishna says, I am not like that. This is the statement of Sri Krishna. I am not like that. You are bound by these attachments and bonds and thongs of this earth. I am not. I am not bound by these things. You are unable to fight properly in Dharma Yuddha and put an end to the enemy who is supporting Adharma because you have got attachments, likes, and all these bonds. But that's why you are not able to do that. But these things don't hold me. I am, Sri Krishna says, this is the rare time where he says, I am indifferent to joy and grief. I am indifferent to good and evil. I am indifferent to pain and pleasure. I make no difference between enemy and another enemy. All are enemies, you are making difference. Duryodhana is an enemy, Bhishma is an enemy. You are making difference between these two enemies. This is grandfather enemy, that is cousin enemy. You are making progress. Enemy is an enemy, representing the other man and enemy. I make no difference as this is this enemy, that is that enemy is enemy. And one more thing he said, I make no difference between enemy and a friend also. To be friend is a covering, enemy is a covering. I don't make any difference. Neither enemy nor friend. Everybody is one to me. And he says, neither blame nor praise can affect me. That means what? If I am going to take up a weapon, and he says, I will take up a weapon for your sake. You are not going to kill. I am born here for protecting dharma. If you are not able to protect dharma, and I will have to do the job for myself. Tomorrow, Sri Krishna said, tomorrow 10th day, I will finish Bhishma. I will kill him. You are not able to do that. You are not able to face him. You want to go away from this Dharma Yuddha. And you think because he is standing and he is an obstruction, you cannot win the war. I will make you win the war. I will put an end to it. For your sake, I will not bother about the blame which people may say, Krishna broke the vow. Doesn't matter. Who bothers? They don't touch me anyway. No duality touches me. Neither sin touches me, nor the merit touches me. That is the time where he declares what he is to them. They are all man. They are all man. And thereafterwards, that is how it goes, that they start thinking now, Dharmaraja says, Bhagavan, you don't do like this. If you do like this, what will happen to us? Now why are we here? Then slowly everybody starts thinking different, and then they finally decide to go to Bhishma. When they go to Bhishma, Krishna will make them understand that Bhishma is waiting to die. It is not that they wanted him to die. Actually, they might have wanted, but actually Bhishmacharya is waiting to go. He knows his time has come to an end, and he wants to leave. And he doesn't want to carry on anymore with all this. He doesn't want to go on. So, on the 10th day, he only gives the idea how to finish him and where he will not fight Shikandi and all that are very beautiful description that is why he is not going to fight. He only gives the waiting. That is where Dharmaraja goes to him and says, okay, I don't know how to talk, but I want to say something, but I am unable to say something. He says, why? Because when I say something, the listener has to come to an end. That is what is my goal of my statement. How can I say that? Bhishma smiles. When the listener is ready to die, but I am getting frightened to tell me that I am waiting to go. How am I to go? I am not able to understand. 2 times Sri Krishna came to me to finish me, but Arjuna came and interfered. I lost the chance. On the 3rd day, or on the 9th day. Sri Krishna goes to finish him off, but Arjuna asks him not to do that. So 2 times I lost the chance. I thought I would be out, but now this is what I am telling you. He says that, and later on, of course, after that 60 days he remains on the bed of arrows. Bhishmacharya remains 60 days after the 10th day, till that Uttarayana is there. So whatever it is, the idea here is Sri Krishna directly reveals what he is. None of these things bind me. So he himself said he is not with any egoism. So that is what it is. Next, Manadaha, he who generates Manadaha, he who generates egoistic consciousness. That is why we all have egos. Acha, now I understand. So next time when somebody says, you egoistic fellow, yeah, God is really egoistic. True, that is true. Otherwise, who will give that I-ness? That I-ness, ego has come from his power only. So he who generates egoistic consciousness, Swamaya Sarvesham Anatmasu Manam Atmabhimanam Dadati iti Manadaha. Through his Maya, he makes others see Atman and Anatman. He only makes us see. But he gives us the opportunity not to see. That is the thing. Freedom means that only. Freedom means give the opportunity to do whatever a person likes, good also, bad also. Provide opportunity, give intelligence, and rest is left to the person. That is freedom. So, next, in the same name, another way of it is beautifully interpreted. Tattvavidam anatmasu manam atmabhimanam dyati khandayati iti va manada. He destroys the same wrong notions of seeing Atma in Anatma. He destroys them in the earnest seekers. That is the beauty. He is Manada. He only gives this egoism of seeing Atma in Anatma. But with the sincere seekers, seek the relief from this type of conditioning. He only removes them. He removes all that. That is why he is Manada. All that we need to do is, we have to seek him. We have to seek him. That's all. Oh Bhagavan, please remove this. And he will show us the way. Otherwise, if you are comfortable with this, you will see more and more what you can create more forms and you can make us create more and more things and more parts. And another meaning here is Manadaha also means he will increase the mana of the measurement glory of his devotees by his rewards. He gives rewards. If anybody is given an award or reward, his level is more now. Like that, he increases the level of his devotees by giving more rewards. Mana taha, to give, that will also gives. And at the same time, he prevents all rewards to unrighteous people. That will also Manadaha. Next name, Manyaha, adored by all. Being Bhagavan himself, Bhagavan of all, he is adored by all. And in Vivek Chudamani, Sri Shankaracharya says, Dhanyaha sa manyo bhuvi. Verse number 425 in Vivek Chudamani, Dhanyaha sa manyo bhuvi. So, Adi Shankaracharya says there, if he who has realized the Supreme is so blessed. One who has realized the Supreme is so blessed. That is the statement. And the idea here is, if he who has realized the Supreme is so blessed and to be honored, Dhanyaha samanyo bhuvi. Such a person is Dhanyaha, so blessed, and he is to be honored, Manyaha, in this world, bhuvi. So if the person who realizes God is so blessed and to be honored in this world, God himself, is he not to be honored? If one who realizes God is to be honored and blessed, God himself, how much more God himself is to be worshipped. The Lord must be. That's why Manyaha, he is to be adored by all. Lokaswami, the Lord of the universe, as he is the Lord of 14 worlds, 7 above, 7 below, he is Lokaswami. Next name, Triloka Dhrita, the supporter of 3 worlds. He supports 3 lokas, whether they are waking, dream and deep sleep, or heaven, earth and hell. He supports all the 3 worlds. Next name, Sumedaha. Sumedaha, bright intelligence. Shobhana, Medha, Prajna, Asyati, Sumedaha. The one who has got the bright intelligence, he is Sumedaha. And whenever Krishna was moving around with his cowherds, friends, he never told them what he is. He only told them he is also born in this family and the clan, and he is one among them. He was just like that. He never allowed his pure intelligence to be known to them. But he was always aware of his purest level of intelligence. We don't remember our pure intelligence because of sorrows created by our misconceptions. So to remove the sorrows, you have to remove the misconceptions. To remove them, you have to gain knowledge. Then we will come to know our true nature. So that knowledge by which we become aware of our bright pure intelligence, our nature is Sumedaha. Our God is Sumedaha. Medhajaha. Medhajaha, born in the yajna or born in the sacrifice. As the one who does yajna or sacrifice, he is like that. He is born in the sacrifice. How? The one who does the sacrifice is doing the sacrifice. So he as sacrifice is born in the act of sacrifice. The initiation as Yajamana is considered to be a new birth. The one who is ready to do sacrifice, that initiation is a new birth. He is born as a Yajamana. The one who is ready to sacrifice. That is what is Medhajaha. And Swami Chinmayananda says, when all the personality layers are offered in an act of total surrender, when we surrender all personality layers, body, mind, intellect, memory, ego, all other layers, we surrender to God, a new self-experience is born. We come to be born and reliving as a new self, that is Atma. So that is Medhajaha, born in sacrifice, sacrificing all that we have, then we come to know what we are in reality. Dhanyaha. Dhanyaha next name means fortunate, because his objects are fulfilled completely. Nothing remains unfulfilled. So he is fulfilled. So he is fortunate. So he is Dhanyaha. And he makes everybody also as Dhanyaha. Satyamedha, of unfailing intelligence. Why he is called as Satyamedha, of unfailing intelligence? Because he possesses the knowledge of all the Vedas and their numerous branches. He has got all of them. So naturally his knowledge is unfailing, his intelligence is unfailing. And in addition to that, he is the supreme power of discrimination, never deluded by the appearances in the finite world or finite world. Whatever worldly appearances are there, he is never deluded because of supreme discrimination. That is why also he is Satyameda. Next, Dharadhara, the supporter of earth. He is always supporting the earth through his amsas or manifestations, as just as Adishesha and others. So he is always supporting. And Swami Chinmayananda says a little differently here. Geographically, the earth looks to be supported by water. And that earth which is supported by water is supported by atmospheric pressure called as air, which is keeping everything in its place. And that air is supported by space. That space is a concept in our intellect. All our intellectual experiences are established in consciousness. See the link. Space is a concept in intellect. Intellectual experiences are established in consciousness. So consciousness supports intellect, intellect supports space, space supports atmospheric pressure, atmospheric pressure supports water, water supports earth, supports all of this. How scientifically is evidence to consciousness? It supports the whole earth. That is Dharadhara. Next sloka. Tejo Vrusho Dyutidharaha Sarva Shastra Bhutamvaraha Pragraho Nigraho Vyagro Naika Shrungo Gadagrajaha Naika Shrungo Gadagrajaha. There was one person who called the reception of the doctor's hospital. The receptionist answered, "You asked for appointment for next 3 weeks. You cannot get appointment." But this patient says it is urgent. I cannot get appointment. Sorry, sir. I can give you appointment after 3 weeks. Then the patient says, "What if I die by then?" And the receptionist says, "In that case, sir, if your wife informs us, we will cancel your appointment." She thinks she is doing act a job, but communication is not correct. But Bhagavan always communicates and blesses and gives those which are only for the good of the being. Tejo Vrusha, he is that who showers rain. He is that shower rain. He always showers rain through the medium of sun. He alone makes the shower of rain possible. He showered his effulgence to create faith in Arjuna. In various forms he showered his effulgence. But these are 2 words. He only makes the shower of rain possible. He only makes that arrangement possible. And he only showers his effulgence in all the forms to create faith in people, in the devotees. He makes something visible to these devotees in their altars of divinity. Whenever they are looking at some divine thing, he makes something shine there and makes them experience that shine, and so that their faith increases. This is the real experience of many sadhakas. When they see their idol, when they see their portrait, when they see whatever thing that they are looking at, they are holding it as the highest, whether it is God or Guru, the guidance comes from there. They shine and they start guiding. That is why he says that Tejo Vrusha. Dyutidhara, the bearer of radiance. Dyutim Angagatam Kantim Dharayan. He has radiance in all his limbs. All his limbs are full of radiance. In his incarnations, he possesses a divine radiance in his limbs. Next, Sarva Shastra Bhutamara, the best of those that wield weapons. If he starts wielding weapons, then nobody can stand in front of him. He is the best among the people who hold the weapons. The seeker in his spiritual path detects the secret hand that is there inside, which is cutting off, striking down all the polluting, negative things that are surfacing from time to time, obstructing the spiritual path. That hand which strikes down the polluting, obstructing things is Sarva Shastra Bhutam Varaha, God inside. God weapons clears the path for us so that we move in inward spiritual journey and reach the highest state. Pragraha, the receiver. He is the receiver. Whatever we offer, he receives. Leaf also, water also, flower also, any object also, or even namaskara also, or even tiraskara also. Doesn't matter. It doesn't bother. Whether you say, I don't accept you as God, but itself you are thinking about me, thank you. That is enough. He receives everything. Whatever anybody gives, he receives. When Shishupala gave all types of choices to scoldings, he received. When somebody prays, he receives. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter for him. Whatever anybody says to say, it doesn't matter to him, he receives. And one more thing what is said here is, this also means, Pragraha also means, the Saradi holding the reins of the horses. He holds them. Like that, our senses also, our internal organ also, the components also run wild like the horses. He holds the reins of all these things and makes us move towards the path of highest grace. Those people who turn towards His feet in devotion, they will not manage and maintain the turbulent senses and the violent mind, intellect, memory, ego. He will manage. All that we need is we have to turn to His feet in devotion and say, God, enough of my managing, you manage them. He takes care of them. For the sake of His beloved Srila, that is what it is about. Nigraha, the controller of all, independently. He controls everything, controls everybody. And not only that, he controlled Arjuna in the great war of Mahabharata, and he made him stand up to all the tough opponents and made him win over the war. And it is also said Nigraha means Bhagavan destroys our ego. Nobody needs to destroy, you don't need to destroy our ego. He absorbs the individual totally into himself when the individual is ready to offer his ego unto God. He makes the individual get absorbed into himself in the path of meditation, in the path of spiritual upliftment, and the seeker becomes the sword, disappears into the sword and becomes one with the Bhagavan. A seer becomes one with the sea, and there is no more seer ego, which is anymore available there. The individual totally merges into the divine side of pure consciousness. That is Nigraha. Next, Jagraha, devoid of end. There is no end to him, and there is no end to he fulfilling the desires of devotees. Endlessly goes on fulfilling the desires of devotees. Naikashtungaha, the many horn, meaning as a sacrificer has 4 horns in the form of Vedas. Chatvari Shungaha, Rigveda Samhita says in praising God, meaning he is having 4 horns, that is all 4 Vedas. And in another way also, 4 horns also means taking state, drink state, digital state, and Turiya state 4. That way also it is called as that. Next, Gadagrajaha. Gadagrajaha, born of mantra. In the Putrakameshti sacrifice as Sri Rama. Sri Rama was born out of the sacrifice. That's what Dasharatha did. So that is how he is born of mantra. So he is called as Gadagrajaha. And or in other meaning, Adi Shankaracharya says, he was the elder brother of Gada. We hardly know about this. He is the elder brother of Gada. Gada is the younger brother of Sri Krishna. Vasudeva, besides Devaki, had Rohini also as his wife according to the Purana. So Rohini had 6 sons and Gada is one of them. So he was there in few important occasions. He was there in the Swayamvara of Draupadi, and he was there when Subhadra was married to Arjuna in Indraprastha. He brought the dowry of Subhadra from Dwaraka to Indraprastha, and Gada was accompanying Sri Krishna in the Rajasuya Yaga that was done by Dharmaraja, and Aswamedha Yaga that was done by Dharmaraja, and in the end when the Yadavas fought amongst themselves and because of the Muni's Shapa, and that is the time where Gada ends his body. That is the time. So Gada is the younger brother of Sri Krishna, so Gada Agrajaha, that way also, or as Sri Rama born of a mantra also. That way also he is called as a Gada. So the basic thing what we are seeing here is all around God surrounds us and constantly leads us and guides us to get into that higher state. Always he protects, always he is there around us. So please remember, he is the happiness and he wants us to be with that happiness as happiness. That is how he keeps on guiding us through his names. Name alone is the means, name alone is the way, name itself is enough and sufficient for us to attain that ultimate state. Being Mahanavami, we invoke the blessings of Mahadevi upon all of us. May her grace flow through us and bless us. Sri Rama Rama Rameti Rame Rame Manorame Sahasranama Tatulyam Rama Nama Varanane Sri Rama Nama Varanane Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayah, sarve bhadrani pasyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhave. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Sri Gurubhyo